the Chase Thomas Podcast, for people who have nothing but time to kill.
When you play good teams over and over again, that there's just a lot of room for you to slip up a little bit. And I mean, there's no shame in losing to Purdue and going down in this way, but you battle back, and this leads us into next year where, I mean, Ethan, when you look at who's leaving, who's coming back, who's staying, seems like we kind of have an idea of what it might look like in terms of Tennessee's main priority in the portal is going to be, when you look at the one new player coming in Bishop Boswell, the 4-star out of North Carolina. He's another guard. So you have to have another high impact wing, high usage wing. So I think that'll be priority one. But when you look at how this team's shaping up next year, what are you most intrigued by with how Tennessee should attack the portal and early rotation starter projections for next year's Barnes team?
Yeah, you hit it with the wing. That was going to be my first thought is you got to get a wing that can. There's no replacing Dalton Knecht, but that can score, that can be the guy that you can go to, that can put the ball on the court and at the very least attempt to score at all three levels, not just be the 3-point shooter. Not just be the guy that goes to the rim, the guy that can do it at all levels. And I mean, there's some guys that are going to come out that can be close to in that range. I feel like that you could find BJ Freeman comes to mind out of Milwaukee. That guy's going to be good wherever he goes. Not saying he's going to be Dalton Knecht, but he's going to be good wherever he goes. Northern Colorado, the guy that they replaced Dalton Knecht with, St. Thomas from Loyola Chicago, went to Northern Colorado, had an incredible year, really good defensively, really good scorer. I mean, he's another guy that you look at. I'm not going to go too much into those guys, though, because, who knows what Tennessee's looking at, who they're looking for. I think they saw that. Like Frankie Collins was another guy, but he's more of a point guard at 6'1". But I don't know. I feel like you got to get someone to help out Tobe at the 4. I feel like you got to get just in general more front court depth because.
Well, hold on. That leads to another question. I mean, are we penciling in Tobe and Jonas as the starting 4 or 5 going next year? Is that what we're banking on?
I was going to get to that because I mean, look, I'm not even going to start speculating about the transfer portal. I don't think Jonas is going to transfer, but I mean, look, if there was a starter this year that I think could, Jonas is probably the most likely option, especially with how JP Estrella played in the last couple minutes, with Tobe completely outplaying him in the most important games of the year. Now, if you ask me to put my hand on the Bible and say, do you think that Jonas Edey is going to transfer? I'd say no. He'll probably stay. I mean, he's built a relationship, and unless you go and get that Cliff and Murray guy from Rutgers, he's probably going to be the starter next year as well. But if you could find a guy in the front court that's better than Jonas, I think you got to try. I think you got to try to get someone next to Tobe because,
I mean, I guess, is it unrealistic to expect all three will be happy if they're all back based on what we saw from Estrella making that leap? And like, is Estrella going to be okay just not waiting till year 3 to be the full starting center at UT? I don't know. We don't every person's different and every human has different expectations and different levels of patience, I guess is probably the best way of describing it. I mean, Ryan, what do you anticipate? You're the closest there in terms of daily coverage. Like, do you think it's realistic to expect Edey, Tobe, and JP all back together next year?
I'm fascinated by how the front court's gonna shape out. I'll start by saying that I think it's possible. Yeah, I don't think JP has to start. He's got to play more minutes.
Yeah,
which to me leads into the bigger question of, we could easily see Tennessee going back to playing a lot more 2 big men last year, and you very easily could keep all 3 happy from a minute standpoint, I think. Now, I would say to me, priority number 2 in the portal is to get a forward that can, whether a true power forward or a guy like Josiah who can stretch the floor a little bit and play the 4 defensively, so that you had that option. Obviously, Jemai can do that too. He's certainly capable of it, but we saw Rick Barnes State out after the Alabama game. When you play Jemai like that, you're taking the very best part of Jemai Mashack, which is how we can lock down its opposing team's guards away, because you have to have him guard big men. So he's capable, but I don't think he's going to be a guy you're going to see doing that as his main role. So to me, yeah, it depends on, do they bring in a forward that can shoot a lot or that can space the court, and do they play a lot more small ball? If that, yeah, it probably is going to be hard to keep all 3 of those guys happy. That doesn't mean that one of them necessarily is going to transfer, because I think all 3 of those guys are happy at Tennessee. But yeah, that's the side of it. Or if Tennessee doesn't get somebody, or whoever they get doesn't work out, they get Chris Ledlam, who doesn't end up being very good in that role. Like, yeah, you're going to see Tennessee play a lot of 2 big men again, because JP Estrella showed a lot. Tobe Waka played some of his best basketball down the stretch. Year 3 is usually the big breakout year for big men in Rick Barnes' system, and if he can learn to play a little bit better without fouling, I think he has fringe all SEC capabilities. So I think it's possible, but it's also a very valid concern too, and I'm just going to be really fascinated to see how everything shakes out.
What do we think ultimately happens to the Santi spot? Do you think you just plug Jemai there and you like we'll pencil in transfer for the 3 spot? Do you open it up, or you're like, if you're Barnes, you want to give every opportunity for Freddie to win that lead second guard spot next to Zakai? Like, I don't know what, because if you go Tobe and Jonas, I mean, love Jemai dearly. Yeah. That's not enough shooting I think we're reverting back to something we don't want to go back towards. And I think Tennessee made the leap, and it kind of leads into my final question on Barnes going into 2024, 2025. But like, I don't know. That's a dangerous game to me in terms of going down that that rabbit hole there a little bit. I don't know. I mean, we talked about before the year, like I was really intrigued with how DeLeon would fit with just the plethora of talent. I mean, maybe it's Cam Carr. Maybe you look at Cam Carr in year 2 that Cam has to be the one of the 5 guys. If you're going to go 2 bigs, that Cam has to find his way into that starting rotation, right?
Certainly. Yeah, no, I mean, that's, if you're going to go 2 bigs, it's hard to see Jemai starting. And I think, just as a whole, Tennessee needs shooting in the portal. They need a true scorer. They need a scoring guard who, like Ethan said, is not just a shooter, can do it at all 3 levels, is a true scorer. But they need shooting. I mean, they lost, I had it pulled up a second ago, like 179 made 3-pointers is what they're going to lose from this season in Dalton, Santi, and Josiah. They got to get shooters. And, just if one person transfers, you're opened up to a 3rd open scholarship. And I think outside of a scoring guard and, potentially some front court depth, or as I would like it to be kind of a stretch 4, that next guy is a pure shooter. You got to add some help there. I'm just skeptical of seeing how it's going to work for Freddie with Zakai. He's so ball dominant still to be effective on the offensive end. He's not a spot up shooter. He can shoot. And we saw it against Creighton. I mean, he wasn't bad against Creighton. He made a real good play in transition, made the right pass to Dalton. To me, it also wasn't a surprise. The 3 minutes he was in there was by far the worst 3 minutes of defense Tennessee played all weekend. I still got a lot of questions about how Freddie fits. I have a lot more confidence Cam Carr is going to be a big part of the rotation next year than I am Freddie DeLeon.
Do you agree, Ethan?
Yeah, I've been itching to say that same thing about Cam Carr that you brought up 5 minutes ago, Chase. I feel like if Tennessee's going to make, for the exact reasons that Ryan just brought up, you gotta find someone that can shoot the ball. I mean, Jordan Gainey's going to be the best option you got there, but I mean, if Jordan Gainey has an off night, Zakai's got to facilitate. You don't know that Freddie can be that guy to let it fly from range. He hasn't shown it. Cam Carr has been the dude that said, I'm going to shoot it every single time I get it. I'm not afraid to. He hit, obviously the big one against Creighton. That was, I mean, I get it's just 1-3, but it was a massive play in that game in a massive moment. And for him to show that he's not scared of that moment and knock that down, I mean, that's insanely impressive. If he can get defense, not even down pat, just like to a level where Barnes can feel confident in playing him. Cam Carr rising up to be that too, the guy that can at the very least come off the bench and make 2 threes a game, like that's what you need. Cam Carr rising to that level would be fantastic for Tennessee. That is the best case scenario.
That would be big. And one of these guys is going to pop. We're going to see it. Like someone is going to pop among Cam, whether it's Freddie, whether it's JP. There's just too much talent there, and they're in this, like, they're going to get more of an opportunity, and they're going to kind of shine. And they have an opening. I mean, that's part of, like, you're going to really miss you're going to miss Josiah, and you're going to miss Santi and the leadership there. But it also just opens the door. This is why you recruit. This is why you have a program. This is what Barnes has hit on. It's like, I have my program now, and that's what it is. So the program continues on, and other guys will step up and become more of those leaders and voices and stuff like that. And kind of leads me to the final thing here. With Barnes, who I'm happy for him to be able to get to the Elite Eight and to kind of squash a lot of the narrative surrounding him. And in March, and shout out to friend of the pod, Will Warren, who had a lot of fun after Tennessee made it to the Elite Eight. So shout out to you.
Nicely done, nephew. The Chase Thomas podcast. Hell yeah.